Hello, welcome. My name is Linda Merchant Pierce, and this is the Soft Pastel demo. This is the second in this series, and today we will be doing a daffodil from the garden. So I've got that back there. We will be talking about how to mount your soft pastel paper, the sanded paper, onto the board, and we will be sketching the daffodil in and then start filling it in with color. So I'm going to demonstrate how to attach the paper to the board, and so I've just got some regular masking tape. I do prefer artist tape, but for this process masking tape is just fine. You may see our studio cats wandering around, and that is perfectly fine. They're always here to entertain us. So what I'm doing is I'm attaching the tape half on, half off to the back of the paper. I'm using the Sennelier La Carte paper here. It's a sanded paper. And so I've got the masking tape half on, half off. I've got the board here that we'll be using. And I'm going to set this on the board.
That's sticky side up with the tape?
The sticky side up, yeah. And this piece here is going to be sticky side down. So this way I don't have any tape sticking to the face of the board, of the paper.
Okay.
I'm going to do the same over here. And now the paper is ready to be used. So right now I'm going to measure out where the flower is and according to where I want it on the paper. So I'm just going to kind of do some basic sketching. And I know this is going to be kind of hard to see on the camera. I will make it darker in a few minutes. But right now this is just to get a basic sketch in.
That's much better.
And I'll be refining all these shapes in a minute. This is just to get things down on the paper. So if it's not exact, that's okay. Again, don't mind the studio cats. They are part of the process. If I could bring them to work, I would.
The abrasive sound really gives you a sense of how sanded the paper is.
Yes, yeah, the paper is, it's a lot like a fine, I don't know, probably like 220 grit hardware strip paper, except it's designed to be archival. And, you can see I'm just laying in the basic shape, so even though with the flower you've got these ruffles and everything going on with the flower center, I'm not worried about that right now. I'm just worried about the basic shapes. just kind of put a table base in here. It's usually nice to have some sort of table line in your work, just
your horizon.
The horizon, the shelf line, whatever, just to give the object that you're painting a sense of place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually switch colors with the pencil. This is just so that I know the difference between the lines that I made initially and the lines that I want to keep. So I'm just going to go do that for just a second here. Let's see here. Use. Yeah, close enough. Okay. And can you see if I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm actually holding the paper up a little bit just so I can get a better perspective on it. But I'm just going to go in and decide where my final lines are going to be. And I do this with any painting, any drawing that I'm doing. I'll do these, an initial drawing and then a final drawing afterwards. And that way I don't have to worry too much about getting my lines exactly in the right space. I can make decisions later on once I get things pretty laid in. Okay. And so you'll notice that I'll probably be changing a few lines as we go. Got the basic shape laid in. Ellipses are really hard for artists because, and symmetrical shapes are really hard because you have to, if it's not the same on both sides, you're going to notice it. One way to evaluate your work is to hold up your picture to a mirror, and your brain will immediately see the difference between the if there's a difference on the sides. Another thing that you can do is take a photo of your work, flip it horizontally, and you should be able to see some differences if you have incorrect symmetry on your work. I'm going to go ahead and continue with laying in the flower. I'm going to be starting to add a little bit more of the details of the ruffles and stuff. But again, that's not something I'm worried too much about. A lot of the ruffles I'll be adding at the very end with the work. So I've got these Drouin pencils, and I'm kind of looking at them as I go to decide the colors that I want to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and again, I don't have to be exact. I'm just going to kind of indicate to myself that there's these ruffles going on with the daffodil. Okay. And again, we've got these in there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and define the edges of the petals right now. And actually, let's see here. I'll just go ahead and use this. Okay. Now, when I'm actually doing the painting, I will be paying attention to the shadows, the way the light plays across the flower, because that's going to give me a lot more information in terms of the 3D-ness of the flower. So you'll be seeing that I'll be picking out some colors that I don't think you'll expect me to pick out, but we'll look at that in a few minutes. And I'm kind of, with nature, with plants and animals and all of that, it's really easy to draw a flower just like you did in grade school. But every plant, every flower, every animal, whatever, has their own personality. And part of what you want to do as an artist is look for those differences. So look for that little bit of ruffle, look for that little bit of, starring or whatever might make that flower unique. So that's kind of what I'll be doing as I'm painting this, is I'll be looking for little unique ruffle bits that I can add in to make this not just any daffodil, but this one unique daffodil. Okay, so we've got that mostly laid in, and I'm going to go ahead and start picking out some colors for the interior of that. Actually, let me, before I do that, I want to lay in the stem too, so I'm gonna just go ahead and lay in the stem. On the white petals I'm looking at, I'm actually seeing some darker colors. So I'm just going to kind of look through what I've got in terms of pastels. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of holding these up to the flower to kind of see if they look appropriate for the colors that I'm looking for. And another thing that you'll want to do is squint. So I'm actually, as I'm doing this, I'm squinting at the picture to kind of see if what I'm getting is anywhere near accurate. And it's not exactly where I want to be yet. So I'm just kind of looking through my collection here to see what else I've got that would work for the colors that I need. And I'm actually seeing some bluish tones in there. So again, and this may take a few minutes. This is a process where you do kind of take some guesses and stuff, and believe it or not, this one is relatively close to what I'm looking for. So I'm going to pick a few more colors here. Let's see here. I need like a... And if you don't have the exact colors that you need, a lot of times you can kind of mix colors as well. So I'm going to just start applying some colors according to what I see. These might not be the final colors. This is just to get these locked in. So just going to kind of add a little bit. You might be surprised that I'm using blue right now, but again, because this is just the initial stage, this is just to get some color down. I've got some So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mixing these colors optically. So I've got some blue down. I'm going to put a little bit of the yellow down, and I'm just going to keep on filling these in as I go. One thing that you'll notice is I'm not going to do any kind of blending until further down in the process. I want to get the pastel particles, the sanded paper particles filled in as best as I can before I start blending. Okay. So I'm actually going to go to this color now, and I know this is going to be a bit of a surprise, but I'm going to go ahead and start the middle of the flower as well, just to kind of get that laid in a little bit. So I'm going to look at the options that I have for colors. This is also why it's really, it's pretty important to have your pastels laid out pretty well in whatever kit that you're using, because this way you can kind of look through your selection and make some decisions based on the color range that you have. So I've got some pastels here that I'm just kind of looking at to see what I think. And again, you can blend them a little bit just to in case you don't have the exact color that you need. The thing is that we do also have some of this darker in here as well. So I'm also going to be looking at the way the shadows are interacting inside of the flower as well. So some of these things I'll be doing later on with the pastel pencils, but this is just to get it laid in fairly well here. This isn't exactly the color I'm looking for, but we'll get that laid in. Okay. All right. So again, I'm squinting to kind of figure out what color range I need. I'm going to go ahead and look through the pastel pencils because I want to do a little bit on the center of the flower. So picking out a color that will work, and I'm just going to kind of work from the center out just to just so that I can see where I'm at on things. Any pastels that I use I'm not putting away yet, because I want to make sure that if I need them, I will have them. I don't have to go searching for the right color again. Again, everything will be defined more once we've got more laid in. I've got a pretty good idea of how I want to lay this in, but just gonna, a lot of times it's figuring out what colors one needs. So I'm working from the inside of the flower out. There's going to be these folds and such that the flower has that you can add in. You'll notice that I use the pastel pencils quite a lot. This is just sometimes it's easier just to draw it in rather than trying to deal with the sticks. With the flower center, I want to make sure that the darker colors are further inside the center of the flower, and also in any folds that there might be, so that you have that depth in the flower. And I know in class I often tell people to push the darks, and this is part of that. Okay. also seeing some greenish colors inside of the flower in the shadows. So again, I'm picking some colors that you might not expect. So but that's what you see. That's what you see. So. As I'm working on the flower, I'm trying to keep the idea that it has these rays coming up from the center. So any strokes that I make are coming from the center of the flower to the outside. So. Okay. I also want to give it the sense that there's light coming through the surface of the flowers. So I'm just going to add a little bit of on the side that's lit. I'm going to add a little bit of extra lighting. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding more details around the edges of the flower. Again, with this particular flower, I seem to be using the pencils quite a lot, and that's totally okay. They're the same material as what you'd find in a pastel stick, so don't worry too much about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and like I said, I see a lot of greens actually in some of these, so yellow greens, so I'll be using some of those colors in the definition of these. I'm just going to go ahead and continue adding some of the darks into the flower as well. Again, the light's coming from this side, so I'm paying close attention to where the light is, how it affects. What I choose for the background will also affect this a lot as well. Because the flower is more warm tones, I will probably end up picking something like a cool blue or something for the background, so that it's not quite as so you have that contrast between warm and cool going on. You'll notice that I've done very little blending up to now. This is most of this can be done just with without doing any kind of blending. I am just going to touch it a little bit just to kind of give it a little bit of blend, but again, just very, very, very lightly. Okay, now I think I'm going to go ahead and add some final highlights to the to the flower itself. Again, I'm paying attention to what I see in front of me. So the highlights are like the icing on the cake. So they're a lot of fun to do, but they just add that extra little bit. Okay, so I know that this is not pastel per se, but you can use white charcoal pencils and also the charcoal black in your pastel painting as well. So I'm just going to go in, and this will give me just the final little highlight that I need. And I can go ahead and I'm switching away from the charcoal white, because the whites you want to save for the brightest brights. So anything that's less than the brightest bright, you want to use something that's not white. It'll work. This is the point where I can start doing the final colors and details and such. So as you see, I'm overlaying some of the shadows that I put in earlier. It's totally fine to do overlays. Again, I don't want to do a whole lot of blending, just enough to kind of push the pastel into place and give it a little bit of smoothness. Okay. Alright. I see some areas that I want to add some darks to, so I'm just going to pick out some colors and we'll do that. always looking at my subject, because that's where you're going to get your information. And again, you might not think that you'd want to use something this dark on something as light as a daffodil, but by increasing the shadows, the lights are going to look brighter. So, so there's a little bit of counterintuitiveness to some of this, to some of the painting. So I will try to increase some of the darks just to give the brights a little bit of shine to them. Again, I can go back with a lighter pencil to just kind of bring some of the brights back if I feel like it's necessary. Okay. I also see some blues in here as well, so I'm just adding some of that too, just to give it a little interest. Sometimes it helps to have, if the subject's mostly cool colors, you might want to add some warm colors just for contrast. And the same thing the opposite way as well. It just gives a little bit more interest to the subject, throwing in some of the extra colors. Also pay attention to where you see them in your work, because it might just be on one side of the subject, depending on how it's being lit. Okay. Okay. So I'm actually going to switch to some of the pastel pencils for doing stem. Alright. And again, because I don't need a whole lot of green for this part, so I'm just going to kind of sketch that in really quick. I always want to pay attention to where your shadow side is and where your lights are in your picture as well. Alright, so I think I'm going to actually stop the camera now, and we can pick this up next week, just because this is getting kind of long. But hopefully that gives you some idea of what you can do to do some lay-in, and happy painting. This is Linda Merchant Pierce signing out.